Out of all the pumpkins Moria had stolen from Sidara's fields, while the scarecrow was away, only 3 seeds managed to survive. They weren't rotten like the others, and she planted them with care. Within days, the seeds sprouted, and soon she had 3 small gourds growing under her watchful eye again. Moria would often speak to the pumpkins as they grew. "I'm not growing you for the Chicken Town market," she would say. "I have much better plans for you." She nurtured the pumpkins day by day, envisioning a grandeur scheme that would bring her wealth and fame. Meanwhile, Clever, the clever white crippled crow, had a fantastic harvest of his own. His fields were bountiful and overflowing with pumpkins of all shapes and sizes. He had far too many for himself and more than enough to take to market, so he decided to share his bounty with the nearby villages. Rather than letting the pumpkins go to waste, he gave them away for free, hoping that the villagers would appreciate his generosity and in the next season, come back to buy from him. As Moria tended to her special pumpkins, she began to consider abandoning the Chicken Town market entirely. She had a new plan. She would sell her pumpkins directly to the villagers. But she knew that as a witch, no one would buy from her. To make her plan work, she would need the help of the fairy godmother, Carlithia, who had the trust of the people. Moria sent Carlithia to the villages with the 3 pumpkins in tow, hoping to get them sold. But when Carlithia returned, her face was grim. "Moria," she said gently, "I have bad news. Clever has already given away so many pumpkins that the villagers don't need to buy any. They've got all they need for free. Why would they spend money on more?" Moria's heart sank. Once again, 3 pumpkins? You couldn't sell 3 pumpkins? She said while clenching her fists. "Don't be ungrateful. Besides, there is still time for me to take these 3 pumpkins to the Chicken Town market and take my chances there. If Clever donated all his pumpkins around here, he surely didn't have enough to take to market." Carlithia said to Moria, ensuring that there was still hope. Clever had outsmarted her, outperformed her, and outwitted her. Furious, she paced back and forth, thinking of how to ruin Clever's crops. Daniel Thorne, her black cat, watched her with narrowed eyes. "You're not going to win," he said with a lazy stretch. "I can see it in your eyes. You want to destroy him, but you'll only hurt yourself in the process." "Shut up," Moria snapped, scratching her head in frustration. Carlithia, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. "He's right, you know. Revenge won't solve anything." But Moria was too angry to listen. She had a plan, and she intended to carry it out. She flew on her broomstick to the vampire's mansion, where she struck a deal. In exchange for her loyalty, the vampire would destroy Clever's pumpkins. For the first time in a long while, Moria allowed herself to smile, believing she had finally found a way to beat Clever. Clever worked at a cemetery on a grave shift, literally. And what I mean about work, his job was to grave rob by removing trinkets from freshly dead bodies. He would then trade them and sell them at the Chicken Town market on the side from selling pumpkins. It was good business, and as he was working in the cemetery, the vampire set to do his job became distracted as he waited for Clever and his friends to leave. Gazing at the cemetery, he spotted a freshly dead body and sank his teeth into its neck after they left. As more bodies appeared, he became consumed with his bloodlust, forgetting all about Clever's pumpkins. Meanwhile, the pumpkins in Clever's field grew to full size, undisturbed by the vampire's neglect. When the season came to a close, Clever took his pumpkins to the Chicken Town market, where he sold every last one. The townspeople loved his pumpkins so much that they invited him to return next season, set up a booth, and be a part of the festivities by allowing him something he always dreamed of, having his own pumpkin carving contest with the locals. Clever was ecstatic, because it was a certified guarantee to sell more pumpkins. As he left the market, richer than ever, while Moria sat at home, blissfully unaware of her failures. She baked a pumpkin pie, savoring the sweetness of her own little victory, believing the vampire had completed his task and Carlithia hers. Just then, there was a knock at her door. Carlithia entered, her face solemn. "I bring bad news again," she said. She brought the 3 pumpkins back in and set them down. Clever sold all his pumpkins at the market, and the townspeople are asking for more next season, and for him to host a pumpkin carving contest at his own booth. His own booth? Moria asked. They gave him his own booth? Why does that surprise you? Daniel Thorne asked. Moria's heart sank. She dropped her head into her hands, feeling defeated. Told you, Daniel Thorne said with a smug purr. The only one who would get hurt is you. Shut up, Moria growled, tossing a book at the cat. He's right, Carlithia added softly. You can't keep trying to beat clever by hurting others. It never works out in the end. Moria sat in silence for a moment, staring at her pie, realizing how foolish she had been. The pie, sweet and warm, wasn't the victory she had hoped for. She had let her rivalry with Clever consume her, and now she was left with nothing but regret. What should I do? She muttered. Carlithia smiled gently. Why not work with him instead of against him? There's more than enough room in the forest for both of you to thrive. You can abandon the pumpkin growing idea and just resort back to selling seeds. Sell him all the seeds he needs, and that would be great business. Moria frowned but knew deep down that Carlithia was right. She had spent too long focusing on defeating Clever when she could have been building something greater. Perhaps it was time to try a different approach. With a heavy sigh, Moria looked at Daniel Thorne, then back at Carlithia. Maybe you're right, she said at last. Maybe it's time for a change. The seasons change, so why don't you? Carlithia stated. And so, with a new resolve, Moria began to plan for something better. She decided that next season, she would collaborate with Clever, bringing her magical pumpkins to the market alongside his. Together, they would create something bigger and better and more spectacular than either could have alone. But since it wasn't her idea, within her mind the balance of thoughts became unbalanced once again. As the seasons changed, Moria found herself happier than she'd been in years. Not because she had a plan for the coming season, but because she let revenge and greed get the best of her mind again. She planned on elevating her name while diminishing his. She would have a better audience at his booth and not in some dark corner. Flourishing fields will be mine once again, and my commitment to sabotaging him will ensure that. She laughed eerily to herself, waiting on the coming season to taint his contest, and as Clever's pumpkin seasons always changed, the crop in Moria's mind never did.